what's going on? This is Smoking No Joking with your man Big A. Today we doing something special. We doing this chuck beef roast. We gonna put it in the oven. We gonna have it cooked slow, low. It's gonna come out tender and juicy. Oh man, so if you ever wanted to learn how to do your own beef chuck roast, this right here is for you. So as you can see here, we in the prep mode. We right here cutting up some onions. Now we're gonna use butter. But you wanna make sure that you use the regular type of butter when you put it up in there, and I'll show you that in a second. So right here, you can see that we're melting butter. Now you would use a half stick to a full stick of butter, and this is going to help tenderize the meat. We're gonna kind of scour it on side to side, and you'll be able to see that here in a second. So get your pan nice and hot with that butter. So with the onions now, you can chop them up, or you could have them here in the big circles. The way we like to do it, we like to keep them in the big circles. So then that way, when it's all the juices and solidifying will happen with those onions as they roast down inside of the butter. Oh yeah, so you can see the size and the girth of this beef chuck roast here. And like I say, you see it, it's steaming down here. We got the onions, we got that butter going. We're gonna season it. Once we lay it in the pan for it to roast, and this is probably the easiest, most tender, most delectable meal that you can make for you and your family. It's one of those, put it in and let it do. So now you can see the seasonings is on top. Now we use the Lawry's on top, right? You're gonna use some garlic powder as well as some onion salt, or is that garlic salt, right? That you're gonna put on there. Now if you want a little kick to it, you would also use some hot pepper flakes. You could put those on there as well. And of course, we're going to add the ground black pepper on top of that as well. So of course, a substitute for the Lawry's, you could use regular salt, but if you want to make sure that you have some flavor, that Lawry's really adds a lot of good flavor to it. Look how that beef roast is happening here, and then we're going to go ahead and flip it on the other side before we put it in the oven. All right, we did the prelim flip on there, adding a little more butter, right? Getting those onions and the butter and the beef and all the seasonings all mixed up in there. Now this isn't too long. We're just gonna do this for a minute before we go ahead and transfer it over to the oven. All right, team, what we're gonna do is we're gonna transfer this nice succulent beef chuck roast over into a pan, and then we're gonna sprinkle it with what we call a little bit of that secret stuff, which is the Lipton onion soup mix. Watch how this happens. So as you can see, we done transferred it into the pan. Now all the butter, all the onions, all that goes in there. And if you don't think you have enough seasoning, of course, at this point, you could add a little more seasoning on top. Look what we're doing here, right? We add a little more shake, right? Just to make sure, because that's a thick cut of meat. You want to make sure that it has good flavor throughout, and you're going to be able to roast this here as you sit back and relax and about to feed your family like kings. All right, so what you notice in there is that Lipton onion soup mix all on the top of it, right? So we're going to put this in the oven at about a 300, and then we're also going to add just a little bit of water to the pan, and we're going to seal it up nice and tight and just let it roast there at 300. And this will stay in the oven for about 2.5 hours. I mean, check your meat. Make sure that it's cooked through the way that you and your family like it. But the way we do it is about 2 to 2.5 hours. We're going to take it out, and we about to be eating. Let's go back with a recap of what we did, right? So we had the roast there. We wind up putting the onions and the butter into the pan. We got the pan nice and hot. Then we go ahead and laid our beef roast in there. We season it on top, right? Make sure you put some seasoning, then you're gonna flip it. And you just want it to brown lightly on each side. Then we take the whole thing and we transfer it into our roasting pan. The secret sauce, that secret ingredient, was the Lipton onion soup mix, right? We put that all over the top. Depending on how you like your food, you could add a little more seasoning to you. Then we put it in the oven at 300. We're gonna seal it up tight, a little bit of water in the pan, and we're gonna let that roast for about 2.5 hours. I'm gonna show you what's up when we take it out. So here's today's beef chuck roast tips and tidbits. Some people will also take like a clove of garlic, right? Just one little side of the clove, and they'll dice it up, right? And they'll dice it up nice and thin, and they'll lay that over on top of it as well. Some people have different spices that they traditionally grown up with. The thing about the beef chuck roast is because it's such a thick cut of meat, you want to make sure that you season it to your family's taste and preferences. So that's today's tips and tidbits. Woo-wee! So as you can see, we done pulled this nice, beautiful, golden beef chuck roast out. You see all the flavored onions with the butter sauce in there, the seasonings. We about to eat. Ooh-wee, look at the juiciness of the cut. Well, we cutting right through it. I mean, if there was a bone, we called it falling off the bone tender. Look at all that goodness. Yeah, that's the final. Notice that we topped it off with a little bit of gravy, so you can do that for yourself as well. We've got the baked potatoes, and now we ready to eat this wonderful roasted beef chuck roast. Yeah, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Smoking No Joking with Big A. This was the baked big chuck roast beef episode.